So here we are with Dale Shunk, an author and professor, talking about neurodiversity and his work in the field. So Dale, thank you for joining us today and for taking the interview. We're going to start off with the first question that we had for you, which, we know you're an author, so we wanted to know a little bit about your books and what you write about.
Right. Well, I write about I've got textbooks for each one. Those are, let's say, they're basic level texts. They're designed really for graduate students, master's or doctoral students, although advanced undergraduates could certainly use them as well. And they talk about different theories of learning and motivation and principles. And both the texts are very heavy on applications. How do you take the ideas that are described by the theories and translate them into practice? Because I think that's really critical. As educators, we need to understand how you take ideas and actually use them to help improve teaching and learning and other educational outcomes. So as I say, both texts are very heavy on that with quite detailed applications and examples throughout. I've also edited a number of books where I've invited other authors to submit chapters. And these have been primarily in the area of what we call self-regulation. Self-regulation is kind of like self-control, self-discipline. How do you manage yourself, for example? How do you control your studying, for example? How do you manage your time? How do you set goals? Things like that. As I say, those are edited books or chapters invited from people who have done research in the various areas that we're talking about in there. I tend to I use the textbooks in courses that I teach, because I teach also courses in those areas of learning and motivation. And those have been specialties. I've done research on them and done quite a bit of writing on them as well.
That's amazing. So what inspired you to get into this field of, work and research? Right.
I've always been interested in education. Going back really back to when I was an undergraduate, although my undergraduate major was actually psychology. But as part of that, I did take a course in educational psychology. And then when I went to graduate school for my doctorate, I was really concerned about the whole issue of student learning and how it happens, for example. And I had a lot of questions about it, let's say that. I think at the time that I went to graduate school, there was a heavy emphasis on student characteristics such as intelligence and abilities and things like that. And I just felt that that couldn't really explain differences in student learning. That yes, those variables may be important, but there were other variables that came into play. Why two students who otherwise may be very similar in intelligence or ability do very differently in school. And I had the feeling that I thought motivation was important. And so really that's what got me into the area originally. And then for my original research that I did, I looked at motivational variables and how those might impact student learning and performance in academic areas. And through the years, I've looked at some various academic areas. I've looked at math, for example. I've looked at reading. I've done research on writing. Done research on learning computer applications, for example, things like that. And findings through the research have been very consistent that shows that motivation does make a difference. That how you can motivate students to try to learn and try to do their best can make a big difference in what they actually learn. So that's what got me into the field. That's what's kept me in the field for a period of time.
Very interesting. And so we know you're a professor. Can you tell us more about where you teach and what courses you teach?
Yes. Well, I teach courses in those areas, actually. I teach graduate level courses in learning and motivation. And then I teach an undergraduate level course in basically it's self-regulation. And this undergrad course is for first year students who are just starting out the university, still in their first year. And I teach them in that one various skills that they need, that how they can set goals, for example, how they can manage their time, how they can decide on the strategy they're going to use, how they can monitor their performance, ways to seek assistance when it's needed, for example, how to create a positive work environment. And what I find is a lot of students come to college and they're not really prepared well in those areas. I think many times in high school, they're pretty much told what to do and when to do it, and there's very little self-discipline needed. When they get to college, the whole landscape changes. No one's telling them what to do anymore. No one's saying you got to go to class. No one's saying you have to do your homework. Now, if you want to pass, you have to do those things, but no one's telling them to do that. And so that whole issue becomes very important with first-year students because they need those skills. And those are skills they can apply in different subject areas. It doesn't really matter what the subject is, if it's science, if it's math, if it's English, history, doesn't matter. You can apply these kind of self-regulation skills generally, and they're going to help you learn and perform better.
Seems like a great class to take if you're starting off in school and you're able to apply this then to even, other very practical. So I wanted to ask you, do you find that colleges offer resources for the neurodiverse community, and what would some of those be?
I think colleges try to do that. Yes, certainly our college does. We have courses that are designed to really do what I was saying a few moments ago. We have resources to help students become better learners and to be able to learn strategies that they're going to need to be successful. For example, they fall in different areas. Sometimes they come under the heading of Learning Center, for example, or Instructional Teaching Learning Center. And students can also self-identify at the start of a semester. And if they do, then they're referred. And we as instructors then receive notice of that so that we can make appropriate accommodations as necessary. So yes, to answer the question, I think they do offer some resources. I don't know how much they're used. That I really don't know. But several students have reported to me that they've been helped a lot through some of the campus-wide resources that we have. And certainly even within our School of Education here, we have a teaching center. For example, it's called Teaching Resources Center. That's right in our building. And they have a lot of resources for that. Like students can go in and they can ask what kind of resources they have. They can find out, they can check out resources or utilize or sign up for things that they need to do. So yes, I think they do. And I'm encouraged that I think a number of students actually do take advantage of those.
Perfect. So that's great to know and share with our listeners. Now, once a neurodiverse student graduates, do you have any recommendations or tips on how they should enter the workforce? Should they be upfront about it with their future employers? What do you think?
Well, I think it's important to be upfront about your background, your experiences, and any particular things you want to point out about yourself. I think that we in higher education today are very much concerned with the whole topic of diversity as applied in different ways, I might say. And, we found it's very, very helpful for students as they're going out into the workforce to be frank and open about their situations and, accommodations made as necessary. we have in our School of Education, the department, it's not the one I'm in, it's another department called Specialized Education Services. And one of their signature programs is for the deaf and hard of hearing. And they have had professors on the faculty there who themselves are deaf or hard of hearing. And they make excellent role models for students in that program, because here's an example of someone who has gone into this field and been very successful. And so I think the potency of having good role models out there is important. And I think universities try to do that. They try to say, well, we're not all alike here, we're different. And here's some of the ways we differ. And, you're welcome in this environment. And I think that's an important message to convey.
I love that. I think that's phenomenal, and great great advice, recommendations, and pointers also for our audience. So I want to thank you for the time today and for meeting with us. And we're going to be definitely promoting you. I know Rich, our founder, was able to connect us. So we appreciate your time today, and thank you for the interview with Connecting Ground.
Well, thank you. If there's any more questions you want me to answer, I'm glad to do it. And I wish you all the best of luck.
Thank you.